All right, here we are with another resume review. This time, again, someone looking for a tech role. I haven't read any of it yet, but we'll dive in and see what's good and what can be improved. First up, name right at the top. Great. Again, it's the biggest thing on here. It's the thing that I looked at first. It was just obvious that it was there. There is a location, email, and a phone number, which were all included in here, which are the biggest three things I want. For the address, this actually had the full address, and you don't need to include the full address. Just the city and state is good, or country, just something that gives me a time zone reference of like, where are you working from? If you need to relocate, let me know. If you have any other things, any profiles that you want to call out up here, a lot of times LinkedIn's helpful if you have one. And if you're doing a development job or something like a GitHub or something like that would also be good. This down here looks okay. Like you could, this bar doesn't do a whole lot for me. It looks very early 2000s clip art esque. You could just do a solid black, line break here or something if you want to have a visual separator. But it looks a little, it just looks a little like you didn't try. To me, so we could improve this. Make this just a solid black line, make it smaller or something, or even give this top like a light gray gradient or something, or just a solid like a light gray behind it, just to visually separate it. You don't actually need a line break between that. Like if this actually had a very light color on the background, that also could work. And just call out again, the main thing we want to look at here is your name, what's at the top. But down here, I'm actually seeing some like formatting things that we could just improve. Like there's a gap here after education, but there's not after work experience. These items are headers for sections, but they're the same font size as these other things. And then I think the fonts might be different. This is all education's all caps. Work experience isn't. I'm a little confused. So help me visually go through your resume to understand where are we flowing? Like, what is this? Where are the headers? Where are the things that I can jump to know like, oh, this is the section I'm looking at. Without any visual separators or larger headers, I'm just having a hard time following some of it. I like to typically see work experience at the top. You only have one line for your education, so it's okay. But a lot of times education's a little less relevant than what you're doing at work. You're applying for a job. You should tell me about what you're doing for a job as well. Um, Computer networking support technician certificate, and this wording certificate and intensive 9 hour. I don't know. Maybe the A should be lowercase. Certificate in intensive 9. I don't know. Combining theory and hands-on practice. Okay, that's good to know. And I see you could visually separate this year too, because a lot of times I want to see that as well. Either you could put it over here. You could just add some separator on that, because I glancing through it, I didn't even notice you put a date. But I want to see that a lot of times. Manufacturing technician. Okay, July. You're again, because you included your address up here, that's good. Otherwise, like, I don't know, are you in Jersey? Or is this, was this job in Jersey and you've moved? I want to know that stuff. So that's why location at the top is important. Test products or subassemblies for functionality and quality. Assist engineers in developing, building, testing prototypes, new products, processes, and procedures. Built products, subassemblies, final assemblies. So it seems like you're like manufacturing, you're doing some like assembly line, possibly, maybe a little bit more based on what you're showing here. Give me some, even if this isn't tech related, like you want a job in tech, you want to do something in tech, you can tell me what the outcome of these tasks were, and also some scale. Your testing projects and subassemblies, was this for 10 items an hour? Was this for 100 items a day? Like, give me some scope and like what you're doing, how you're testing them. If you work with any technologies, any software, Microsoft Excel, a programming language, if you're doing automation, all that stuff would be good to know here on how you actually do it. So you don't have to have like a word bubble of different technologies, but you actually tell me when and how you applied some of those technologies at work. And if you improved the process, if you reduced accidents by 10%, or if you increased throughput by 5%, give me some of that stuff here directly in the job description items so I can know how you had an impact at this company in this job. I don't really care about what you're doing, but I want to see that you were better than someone else. I want to hire you versus the other person that might also be applying with a similar background. Again, this might be formatting just like it seems weird. Like the gap here between the sections, it seems like it's a smaller gap than the one between different jobs. Make sure you can clean some of that up. You can close this gap between the two so that it looks like it's the same section. Because right now it looks like I went to a new section called Road Technician, especially since these fonts are the same size. April 2021. Okay, and also I'm curious, you're doing two jobs? These are two different companies, Jersey and Bronx, two different jobs. Are you doing two jobs at once right now? Are these full-time jobs? I have questions about some of that stuff. Even if you have two part-time jobs, that shows me that you're good at time management skills, that you can handle yourself with your personal life, with family life, whatever, and manage two jobs. That's important to actually call out because that's a skill that isn't directly tech related, but you're going to deal with it a lot in tech. And also, did you ever have conflicts between these two jobs where you had to choose one or the other? That tells me you're good at prioritizing things. You're good at conflict resolution if you got in trouble with a manager somewhere. I've had multiple jobs in the past at the same time. It's very difficult to manage your own schedule and how that stuff works. So call that out too. If you are working at both of these at the same time with different companies, I want to know what you're doing. Do you use heavy Google Calendar or something like that? Like, tell me how you're doing some of that so I can know that you're good at these things. Troubleshoot hardware and software. What kind of software? What was this? What are the troubleshooting steps? What technologies did you use? Are you using scripting languages? Do you have run books? Did you create any run books for other technicians? Did you improve that process? Tell me some of that stuff as well as some metrics around it. Prioritize schedule and complete all work in compliance with established policy and guidelines. Assign territory. Work. Some of this might, like, this line can probably be here. It looks a little bit just like formatting maybe didn't work so well when you printed it, or it was just maybe a little sloppy. But there looks like a lot of white space over here that you could clean up by putting these lines. And again, I like that this is one page. If you need to fill out some more information, like, it's okay to leave a little bit of gap at the bottom. If you don't have everything, but you could still call out some relevant things that you're doing that help you show your skill set if you're trying to get into a tech role. Monitor, diagnose, and troubleshoot equipment. Again, I want to know what technology you're using. I want to know how often you do this. I want to know if your troubleshooting steps made any impact on the reliability of the products. Did you do something to improve it so you had fewer errors? You were doing this April, so you haven't been there a long time, 8 months or whatever. But are there things that you're doing that are improving how this process is working? Technician, TVR communications. This format is just not consistent. This has 3 lines for location, years, and company, and then here it's like, job title. This is all one line now. So be consistent with some of that as well. That's just easy to fix, and you don't need to, don't make me parse it differently each time. I'm looking at a lot of, if I'm a recruiter, I'm looking at a lot of these a day. I don't want to have to switch my mental model of how did you format it this time? Keep those consistent. Same thing with down here. Televisions, telephones, are these? This is when I'm old. When I think of televisions, telephones, I'm thinking like CRT tubes. I'm thinking like rotary phones, like that sort of stuff. As if you're talking about refurbished, but I'm assuming you're talking about like LCDs. You're talking about, is these cell phones? Are these like phone systems for large companies? Voicemail systems? Like, I want to know some of that information to know like what technology you're dealing with, what tooling you're dealing with, and also what scale you're dealing with. If this was 500 phones for a customer, like that's a lot of phones. Like, call that out. That's not an easy thing to set up. TVR communications, I'm assuming these are individuals, but maybe not. So you could just say this is 500 customers, right? Like, it's slightly different complexity, but it shows me the scale of how much you're doing at the location. Monitor schedule report, follow-ups, telephone, television management, manage incoming, local, long-distance calls, provide television and phone service to needed patients. These are fine. I mean, again, these are things you did. I would love to know some outcomes, some metrics. If you had anything you did that improved this, either for the company, for your fellow coworkers, for the process, anything like that would be good to call out. County clerk, oversee day-to-day clerical functions, process mortgage notice settlements, deeds. Did you ever deal with like conflict here? Were people mad at you? Did you have to like talk people down? That's again good for even technology roles. Sometimes you deal with angry people. You might be in customer support and some people aren't too happy with you. Call those out as like good communication skills because you dealt with, lots of angry customers, or you were the go-to person for these angry customers. Supervise office of approximately 15 individuals. That's good. It at least knows that you're trustworthy. You have some ability to manage those individuals. What does that actually mean, though? I like seeing the number, but I want to see like you help mentor them. You managed all their schedules. What did you actually do when you were supervising them? Experience, volunteer youth ministry, Make-A-Wish. Kids Day, volunteer Girl Scouts. Okay, these are great. Like I do like seeing some volunteer work. That's still good. If you can tell me like what your role was in some of these would actually be even better, because I've volunteered at churches and nonprofits and stuff like that, but like a lot of times I'm like stuffing envelopes, and that's okay. Like it's fine to have those on there. It's fine to include those. I like seeing that you have some initiative in some of this stuff. But if you learned anything, if you helped them do something, if you worked at a big event for like Make-A-Wish or something, if you're like, oh, we threw 3 events and I volunteered for, like a 300 person event or something like that. Like those are still good relevant metrics that I can use to say like, oh, wow, like you really go out there and you try to do some of this stuff. References available upon request, like I don't typically include that line. You could leave it off. It's also just like a weird centered formatted thing at the bottom. It's not super necessary. I would assume, most recruiters, managers, anyone can probably guess like, hey, I could ask you for a reference if you wanted to give me a reference. Most of the time, if they really wanted, they would want to know like someone from one of your previous jobs. Like tell me your old manager. Can I call them? What will they say about you? That's actually a little more important than like you just randomly telling me like your friend's number or something like that. So yeah, I think if you're trying to get into a tech role, you could still use this experience, some of these jobs, some of the tasks that you did, with a little more details of how it might apply to tech roles. Aren't just programming. It's still dealing with people. It's still communication. It's still scheduling. Especially if you're doing support, tell me how you're good at talking to customers, talking people down from being angry, that sorts of stuff. I want to see that on here, and some of it's missing. So I think it's a good start, and you can just be consistent with your formatting too.